Hi everyone, how are you tonight? Thank you very much for tuning in. This is Aftermarket. We are live at Neura. This is a special show because we have a very special program. Lo voy a decir también en español porque Tronco me está hablando por acá para que lo diga. Así que bueno, bienvenidos a todos. Esto es un especial de Neura, especial After Market, After Sanduber o Sanduber Market. Así que bueno, muchas gracias por sumarse de ese lado. We have, as I said, a special show tonight. I can't believe it. He is right next to me. So we are all thrilled that he is here with us tonight. Mr. Jordan Belfort. Hi, Jordan. How are you tonight?
Estoy muy bien. El lobo de Wall Street está en la casa.
The Wolf of Wall Street is in the house. Indeed. Well, it's amazing having you here. As I say, I can't believe it. So thank you very much for taking your time.
My pleasure.
Really. Well, first of all, I want to give a special thanks to Fernando Corvaro. He is a friend in common that we have with Jordan. So, Fer, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here.
I'm so grateful. Thank you very much for everything you have done to make this interview happen. So thank you. If he was intense lately, that was because of my fault, right?
No,
I was talking in the other side of the conversation, asking him to come to show you to come to here.
Fernando is very persistent. Fernando.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I love about Fernando.
It was my fault. Well, I'm aware that you are a Red Bull fan, so have it. So it's very nice to have you here.
Well, you know, I'm sober for 27 years, so I can't use cocaine anymore. So this is all I have left is Red Bull. So it's, you know, not as strong, but it works, you know?
27 years without any quaaludes.
Or coke, thank God, you know?
You don't miss it.
No, I mean, well, still the Quaaludes, maybe, but you know, but thank God they're you can't get them. But the cocaine, no, it's devil's drug for sure. You know, it's like one of those things you hate it, and then you forget why you hate it, you do it again. So I'm glad it's out of my life.
I was hearing the other time. Oh wait, he's with Alejo is here with us. Hi Alejo, how are you?
Hello
tonight?
everyone, I'm very happy to be here. I'm celebrating my birthday today.
Happy birthday!
Such a good
¿Cuántos
present.
años tienes?
46.
Oh my God.
I'm getting 46 today, so yeah.
Mucho.
Very nice meeting you.
Do we sing you feliz cumpleaños?
Such a good present, eh?
Yeah, and everybody's going crazy. I told you before, everybody's going crazy, and people first they thought it was a joke,
Fake.
right? Like it was fake, and then they said, okay, you're gonna do like a Zoom call or whatever. No, he's coming here live in the studio. So again, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Well, Jordan, let me start asking you, what the hell is going on in Argentina? You know, Argentinian assets have been rocketing lately. And we have a president that I'm aware that you're going to meet him tomorrow. And, you know, Milei, every time that he goes overseas, he looks like a rock star. Everyone wants to meet him or have a chat with him. Also, he's Claudio Suchovicki in the house as well.
Mucho gusto.
Nice to meet you.
Two huge people meeting right now. So this is very intense here in Argentina. I don't know if you know him, but this is...
The Warren Buffett of Argentina.
Indeed.
We told him that you are the Warren Buffett of Buenos Aires. But in pesos.
I'm stupid trader.
Oh, no. Well, so what is going on here in Argentina?
I think that it's so interesting how assets will skyrocket when the government stops wasting money and starts having some austerity. And there's some belief around the world and domestically here that the future is looking up. I mean, you know, you went from, it's a staggering statistic that you went from, what was it, 250% hyperinflation. Yeah. Now it's in the 40s somewhere, annual inflation rate, which by U.S. standards is still incredibly high. But for Argentinian standards, considering what you've been through, it's a shocking turnaround. And I know that inflation continues to fall, and the target is, what's the target for this year or next year, 10, 20% or something?
18.
18%? 18%,
yes,
right? It's incredible. And at least with that, you can at least take a breath and start making progress. When you have 250% inflation, you have no economy. They're changing the prices on the menus every hour, right? It's insane, right? And my wife is Argentinian. She's from she's a Cordobesa. She's here. She's amazing, right? So I spend a lot of time here, and it always shocked me, this whole thing. You bring in with all the pesos this high, right? And it's amazing. And I truly believe that if Milei did not get elected, that the economy was really going to on the verge of complete ruin, and I don't know what would have happened. So I was always a huge fan, and the thing I loved his videos. I mean, I used to watch, and my friends didn't speak Spanish. I'd say, just watch this guy. This guy's the best, and and you could tell that he believed so much in what he was doing and the passion behind that.
When did you got your attention? When Milei caught your attention? Do you remember it?
Oh, I think maybe it was my wife Christina that first told me about him, and but her father's a huge fan of Milei, a very successful businessman up in Villa Maria, and and the interesting thing is it's this conundrum, this weird thing is that we always hear of Argentina as it has all of this potential. It has incredible resources, natural resources in terms of minerals, farmland, wine, educated populace, and in fact, in the 40s, you were one of the number 3 most successful, richest countries in the world, right? And then you went through this crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis, right? And I never really understood the whole thing. Evita, I never really understood that because I know it's down south, very far away. So, and sometimes people in the U.S. we only think about the U.S. is the whole world, right? Mm-hmm. But when I came down here and I started first dating my wife and got married, I met her father. He's like, I said, what is wrong with the country? He goes, it's the government. It's the worst governed country. The amount of fraud and corruption and malfeasance and just the amount of people who are on plans that don't work and that are working the system and having 5 plans. It's completely dysfunctional government with people buying votes and having planned strikes and all these. And I was like, and I started reading up on this, and I was like, oh my God, So it started to make sense, and then I started to really trace the history of Peronism here, and listen, I could say, well, tell me where that hasn't destroyed any country. It destroys every country. Okay, socialist politics, they just don't work. It has never worked anywhere. It never will. It's a bankrupt philosophy, bankrupt ideology, and you could do a lot of A/B split tests. You could do North Korea, South Korea, East Germany, West Germany, and Czech before the when they were communist. Czech. I mean, on and on and on. It just simply doesn't work, right? And I will tell you that everyone I know was praying that Milei would get elected, and when he did. I mean, this guy was like, well, he took a freaking chainsaw to the gun. And by the way, that's what the U.S. needs to do. They need to take a lesson from Milei. I know he's friends with Elon Musk. Elon Musk plans on doing that if Trump wins, because this is not just great for Argentina. This is something the whole world needs to take note of. What's going on in Argentina in terms of real true fiscal austerity. Okay, budget surpluses versus deficits. Now, does that mean there's not pain along the way? Yes, there is short-term pain to that. And I think the first thing, and what I respect about Milei as well, is that he was honest about that. He said there's going to be pain in the beginning.
So you're bullish with Argentina?
I'm very bullish for Argentina. And in fact, I'm more bullish for Argentina as long as his policies stay in place past him. And I think people need to start looking at this as on some level, this is the sacrifice generation. It's about your children and your grandchildren that need to be part of what could be the most amazing country and comeback story in the world. And I think people need to think about, yes, we have to, tighten our belts right now, and it is tough. And you know what? But we're going to secure a future for our children and our grandchildren, and that's the most important thing.
Jordan, I think Milei not only won an election, right? I mean, I believe there's only a change in the population. And when Milei won and he gave his first speech as president-elected, right? He said one of his most famous phrases, no hay plata, there's no money. And people started chanting, no hay plata, no hay plata, there's no money, there's no money. And I was watching the TV and I said, what happened? What happened? That some months ago, people were asking for the government to pay everything. And now people are chanting, there's no money. They understand that we cannot continue living this way. So there's also a change in the mind of the population.
It's funny when you tell people the truth.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's like, people say, just tell me the truth. There's no money, right? Now, again, I'm sure there's pain, but yeah, I mean, people will rally to the cause. What people don't like is to be gaslit and have the wool pulled off. They hate that, right? And I think also there was just no choice at that point. I mean, where were you going with 250% inflation and, no ability to borrow from overseas? It was done. You had to do this. And he's the right man at the right time for a lot of countries in the world.
Do you have any Argentinian assets on your portfolio?
I'm not going to lie. The answer is I don't, and I should have, because Fernando was begging me to do it in the beginning, and I'm very pragmatic investor with like my in my personal life I'm wild. I spend money very recklessly, but when it comes to my investments, I'm very pragmatic with the S&P 500 and I have almost all my portfolio there and in Bitcoin. I really don't get involved in speculation because my whole life beyond that is in speculation with being entrepreneur and starting business and trying to grow business. So I invest a lot of money in entrepreneurship and taking shots in business. But when it comes to investing, I like to just honestly, I have a formula that I know will work over the long term. And it's about really honestly just, putting my money into the S&P no matter where it is, knowing that some years it's going to fly up, others it'll go down, but by and large, it's going to compound at 10% a year. And, plus I reinvest the dividends, and that's a winning solution for me. Then I just know I'll end up in the right spot with my investment portfolio.
Well, I tried to sell Jordan L30 before, but I failed, actually. He's the number one salesman in the world, and I would like to ask him, what would you tell Milei if he asked you, how would you sell Argentina to the world?
So, good question, right? And I think what you need to realize is that it's something that sales is sales. You can be selling a country, right? You could be selling a refrigerator. You could be selling a car. You could be selling a service. Doesn't matter, right?
The famous pen.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Pen doesn't matter. Sales is sales, right? One of the fundamental mistakes that people make when they sell is they believe that in order to effectively position their product, they need to talk about all the features and the benefits. Right? All the positives. And you're essentially loading on the positives, right? And that's true that you need to do that. But there's another side to the equation, and that is what's the downside risk? Mm-hmm. And very often what salespeople do is they spend a lot of time talking about this is the upside, this is what's going to happen, this is the value proposition, this is what you could make, this is what you could earn, the returns it could be enormous, blah, 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 right? But what if it goes wrong? And they don't spend very little time talking about that. The problem is that when people are making a decision, they consider both the upside and the downside. Naturally, the brain always weighs both sides of the equation. In fact, we're fear-based creatures. It goes back to a reptilian brain. We're being chased around by saber-toothed tigers. We always say, what risk is around the corner? Before we look for upside potential, we'll also always consider downside risk.
Kept us alive, right?
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's self-preservation, right?
Exactly.
So that leads me to Argentina. I think it's crystal clear to any investor that knows anything about economics, anything about returns, natural resources, global positioning. It's pretty clear that Argentina right now, in terms of the upside, is a really easy story to tell. The upside is clear. The upside is massive. So let's talk about what that looks like. Well, let's just say that Milei's policies succeed, and more importantly, that even if Milei let's say he goes 8 years, what happens after? Let's say that his policies continue and Argentina continues and it succeeds and goes on this incredible growth trajectory with, 7 to 8% annual GDP growth, budget surpluses, inflation under 3, 4, 5%, okay? Let's just say that's the story that Milei wants to tell, because that's what's possible, okay? And that's what he believes in all of his heart and soul. And you can tell that when he speaks, he truly believes it, right? So that's an easy story. I don't think people are going to question that if things go right, this is what's going to happen. This is going to be the greatest investment opportunity in the last 100 years. Seriously, right? But what's the downside risk? What if things don't go as planned? What strategies are in place right now to mitigate downside risk? If he doesn't bring that up to investors, they'll make it up in their own mind. They'll still do their own equations, and they'll think that, oh my God, where's all that? We go back to parentism, and then they got to freeze the currencies, and you can't get your money out of the country. They'll nationalize certain assets, and all these other things, fears that every investor has, and they'll look back. Well, in 2000, they defaulted on their debt, and right. So he needs to be saying, listen, let me tell you, and here's the downside. Here's what can happen if things don't go as planned. And that downside risk needs to be honest, but also paint as positive a picture as possible, and also have some sort of stopgap mitigation factors, whether they're, certain types of guarantees for a certain amount of time, people will be able to get their capital out, that and so forth, or there's some sort of orderly plan that this is not going to be a blip and a flash in the pan, so to speak, right? And tell them this is the downside. So the upside is massive, the downside is there, but it's controlled. So focus on both the downside and the upside rather than letting that be the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about. And they say, wow, it sounds amazing. They go back and they look at, well, in 2000, they default, and they go back and they create the downside. And if you don't do that, they'll make it as worse as it can possibly be. So bring it up, limit it, be honest about it, but show them the strategies you have in place. And then by doing that, and the upside sells itself, I think you have tremendous success at attracting capital to Argentina.
Is Milei a good salesman on your?
I think well, I'll tell you, listen.
The Argentinian product.
Maybe he'll try to sell me a pen tomorrow, but I don't know. But what I will tell you is that when you hear him speak, he possesses the single most important thing when it comes to selling, which is his certainty and belief in what he's doing is unquestionable. You don't feel like he's lying to you. You feel like he's talking straight to you. You feel like he's speaking truth, and he's passionate.
And authentic also.
And that passion and authenticity comes shining through. That's 90% of the battle right there.
How do you realize when a salesman is cheating on you? Like, how do we know that Milei or anybody is not cheating on us when they want to sell us anything? I don't believe in any salesman because I think they want to cheat on me.
So, good question, right? So a lot of it comes down to that there's two cases that you have to make to someone when you're trying to sell them something. There's the logical case and there's the emotional case, right? The logical case is, does everything add up? Is there a positive value proposition? Does the cost-benefit ratio make sense? Do the features and benefits that the product or service have correctly match with what the person needs? Is it a good fit, right? And that's really more of this sort of arithmetic, logical case. Like, does 1 + 1 = 2 or not, right? Then there's emotional certainty, the emotional side, which is like, you just got to have this. It's amazing, your life's. Just imagine your life in 3 years from now. It's going to be so great. You're going to get all these amazing. So one of them is more like about like sort of projecting what you're going to, how great you'll feel in the future, which is like Kamala Harris when she gives a speech. She says nothing. She gives you no policies at all. And then we'll tell you some crazy story. Well, when I was growing up in the middle, what the fuck does happen to anything, right? Okay, there's no meat on the bone.
She did that in the debate. She was all the time. She was coming back to that.
Are you better off when you're 4 years late and then you are 4 years? Well, when I was growing up, what does that have to do with it?
And what about Biden? When you heard about it, just that's different.
Christina and I were on a boat trip in the south of France. And
Christina is your wife, right?
Christine's my wife. Yeah, she's sitting right there. She's amazing. Like, Gordo base, I love her to death. Best thing that ever happened to me, right? Her and my children, right? And we were on the boat and watching the debate between Biden and Trump, and I was like dying. I was like, oh my God, this is like, I couldn't believe it, because like we all knew. And on the Republic, we knew he was senile. We knew he had, whether it's Alzheimer's or whatever it might be, the guy's not all there. Okay, he's just not. And for it to be exposed like that, while it was an embarrassment and it was sad, okay, it was just like finally, because like the press just lies so much and covers for the Democrats in our country. It's just so corrupt, right? And it was amazing, but. Again, getting back to this point about, like, what you said, how do you know it? Well, when someone spends a lot of time trying to emotionally get you excited, but doesn't take the time to build the logical case, that's a massive red flag to someone that's, essentially not dealing in good faith with you. They should also first describe the logical, why it makes sense, and there should be very clear propositions, value-wise, cost-benefit ratio, And then after that, then they can say, and just imagine how great you'll feel in a year from now if they've been using the product or whatever it might be.
Jordan, can we go back to your story
Yeah.
a little bit? So I understand that you were born in a middle class family, having enough but not too much, and you always eager to have money, right? And that was something that was pushing you from the very start. You made a lot of money in Wall Street. You made your mistakes, crazy life. Everybody knows the story, the movie. Then you paid for that 22 months, and then you came back, right?
Right.
Plus, it's true the picture, the movie.
Very
It's
true.
true that-
But there's
it's
obviously
true.
some things are not true, but by and large, they're the feeling that you get from the movie, especially from the brokerage, the business side, it's accurate. But of course, there's some things that like the line is collapsed, and they do make some things up for poetic license. Like there's a scene where I punch my wife in the stomach. I never punched my wife in the stomach or anything like that, ever. Like nothing even close. There was no physical violence in my relationship with her. It wasn't like that. But so there's some fabrications. But the movie is very true in the sense that it gives you a feeling of what it was like to be there in the insanity and the camaraderie and the speeches and the partying. So that stuff it's very accurate like that. In some respects, we were even worse. I mean, like things that you couldn't show on screen back then. But now when you see things that are happening in the world, like with P. Diddy and these things, we never did anything like it was not. This was all good fun, clean. Young kids having fun. There was never it wasn't a
You were
dark.
young, right? You were 20-something, 30,
Yeah, but it was like
something
there was
that.
no dark side. Like some of the stuff that you hear now is like insane. Like with P. Diddy, I'm sure you guys know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like none of that stuff. This is all like it was very, very fun and games and lighthearted like that, and more self-destructive to each of us because of the drugs we were taking than anything else. And yeah, so when I see what's happening now, it's like, oh my God, I can't even believe some of the stuff.
How do you come back? Because you lost everything or almost everything, and then
Yeah.
you came back, and now you are doing really well. You have written 4 books, right?
Yeah.
And how do you come back after that?
3 times, Alejo. Not only once.
Yeah.
You see two times in
Yeah,
the movie,
yeah.
but there is one before the movie, which is a very funny story. I can tell you about the meat selling business.
Yeah, my first business, but to answer your question, I guess people would say, "Wow, that's resiliency," right? But that's not really, that's like sort of a shallow answer. The deeper answer, for me at least, I think, is that at the darkest moments of my life, right, especially after I lost everything, I was very clear about why I wanted to come back from failure, right? I never doubted that I would make money because I was a great salesperson. And when you're a great salesperson at the level that I'm at, you could always make money selling something, right? But for me, it was more than that. I wanted to essentially to really do something extraordinary again, right? Now, I never imagined it would be that I would write this book and the book, would become this bestseller and then made into a movie. And I never thought that's how I would become successful again. It was a circuitous route, so to speak, right? I thought it would be just by starting another business and building it and making money. That always came easy to me, right? But what really allowed me in the darkest moments of my life, and I'll tell you a story, like when I was in jail and I started writing this book, journalists interviews often ask me, how did you do that? You went to jail? How were you able to stay positive, while you're in jail and it's the worst place in the world, right? And the jail wasn't so terrible. I mean, I wasn't worried about what was happening in the shower. It was a minimum security, prison, right? But jail's jail, it sucks, right? And when I started to write this book, okay, I had a very tough time learning how to write in the beginning. Then I kind of cracked the code for that. But in the beginning, there were many, many times when I felt like I just can't do this. It's too much lost. I made too many mistakes, right? And I felt like giving up writing at that point in time. And in those moments, really mostly we're at nighttime when you're alone in your bunk with your thoughts and you could just think of all the mistakes you made. And, it just seems like there's such a long, unclear path back to any semblance of success. And, I'd close my eyes and I would imagine the faces of my 2 children. They were 9 and 7 when I went to jail, and it was the most devastating thing ever to have to tell your children you're going to jail. And they were crying, and and I just never forget the pain that I had, I caused them. And it's like, in that moment, when I felt like those moments, I felt like I couldn't go on. And I said, I have to do this. I have to prove I have to show my children that their father's a good man, that their father can come back and do it right and rebuild his life. And I was and that power of really knowing why you want to succeed, why I want to write this book, why, whatever it might be, is tapping into at the deepest level, why do you want something? You want to have a comeback, okay, fair, but why? And not like because I want to make money. That's not a powerful why. Because, we'll always do more for people that we love unconditionally or causes that we believe in. So I think that a big part of my ability to come back was that when I think I'm very good at tapping into that why, all right, which allows me to overcome any negative feelings or any uncertainty. And I train myself over a lifetime to be able to do things that I hate doing for extended period of times and like 18 hours a day. Like, I think some people, the problem people have with success is they don't mind working hard and doing things that they love to do. But when it comes to having to do the things that they have to do, that they don't enjoy doing, they shy away from those things. So like, I hate writing, but I can get myself to sit down and for like a year straight and work 16 hours a day or 18 hours a day. My wife has seen me do this and sit there.
And you did yourself, right? I mean,
I write every word myself, right?
That's great.
I taught myself to code recently, and I'll sit there for literally weeks at a time through trial and error and teaching myself how to write, Python code, or whatever it might be for artificial intelligence. And I'm not really enjoying it, but I can literally harness my focus if I know why I want to do this, what my outcome is. And I think it's a very important skill that people should learn to almost train yourself to do. Like, I've trained myself. I assure you I was not like that when I was a child. I was the laziest student. I wanted to cut school as much as I could and go talk to girls and have fun with my friends. But when I realized that the harder I worked, the more money I could make, the more steps I took on the beach, the more dollars in my pocket, I started to link up that, this hard work has great consequences on the other side. And I conditioned myself to become the hardest worker I know.
And what piece of an advice can you give us to the whole Argentinians? You know what? I think we are broke right now. We are facing bankruptcy in Argentina, the whole Argentina. Despite the Argentinian asset rally, the economy is still struggling. And last week we knew that more than 50% of our population is poor.
Yeah.
Most of them are kids, underage. So we are fucked up. I think we are fucked up in my opinion, after 20 years of goddamn populism. So what piece of advice can you give us?
Populism with theft.
Yeah, theft. Yeah.
How much money was stolen by politicians?
More than 1 GDP or maybe 2 GDPs.
Yeah, right. So you gotta, let's call a spade here, right? So here's what I would say. Okay. Number one, it's a miracle that you've gotten this far. Like, to go from hyperinflation, okay, to where you are right now with a budget surplus and inflation on the way down is a miracle unto itself. That's step one. That had to happen to make any progress here, to have any chance of any outside investors coming in and investing on a sovereign level. You had to do this. There was just no choice, right? And I would also say that Argentinians, and I find out more and more about this every day. Just last night, I was taught something of the corralito from her father. Was telling me the corralito.
Yeah.
And he was telling me he's in real estate, and he was telling me these insane stories that as financially sophisticated as I'm like, what happened? I'm like, wait, what do you mean you were exchanging properties for debt? I'm like, what? It's like 20 years to me. And he's explaining to me that it was such a panic in the country, right? And, my wife always says to me, and it's true, she goes, Argentinians, you have to be so sharp and nimble because you have no choice. You have to learn to be a step ahead, to think differently, right? So I think that there's like this sort of sense, I think, is a national identity. Every country has its own national identity. In the U.S., ours is we're going to carry lots of guns. We're going to invade lots of countries, and we're the richest country, right? That's how you would count, right? That's the United States, right? And we're also entrepreneurs down to the bone. Every person in the U.S. thinks they should be an entrepreneur, right? And that's a great thing, right? So, but I think that I understand this poverty. 50%, I get that, and that's terrible. But it's always darkest before the dawn, okay? And I don't think it's that far away. What you really need here is foreign investment into Argentina. It's so crucial. Now, hopefully, I wouldn't say get lucky, but hopefully Trump is going to win. And I think if Trump wins, it's very, very good for Argentina. I have no doubt he would extend a massive lifeline down to Argentina in the form of guarantees for loans and stuff.
You will turn even more bullish if Trump wins.
I think it's a massive, massive win for Argentina. 100%. I really believe that. He respects Milei. He likes Milei. They think the same way. And Elon Musk is going to be his chief cutter. The person that cuts all the fat out of the government, right? Which is necessary for the U.S. as well.
What are the odds that Trump wins?
I think it's 52% he wins, 48%.
Very precise. I mean,
52.
Yeah.
I think because they're saying it's like neck and neck, but he always underpolls by a few points. Trump, that's what I think. And we have an electoral. It's not a popular vote in the U.S. It's electoral college, and that favors Trump a little bit. But I don't really know. I wish it wasn't this close, but it is. So I think that's part of it. I think that you need to bring an outside investment into this country. And also, I just think that every Argentinian person, you're all in this together at this point. There is no way forward. The path of plans and handouts, it won't work. It doesn't work. There's no money. He's right. No hay plata. There's no money. Yeah. So it's like it's up to every single person. Who's got to get out there and work hard and be part of this. It's got and you have to just take this patriotism off the table. It's like this. It's not. I don't understand it. It just doesn't work. It's never worked anywhere. So, I understand that people love the corruption and the handouts and everything, but I don't know. I mean, it's and I think people, and I would urge everyone, every Argentinian, to say, I understand this stuff, but there's no exit ramp. You can't go back to what you were doing. That's not a possibility. You can't go back. Okay, it's too tough. Let's start giving more handouts again. It's like the old Soviet Union. I'm going to keep paying you. I'll keep pretending to pay you if you keep pretending to work. You know what I'm saying? The point is they were giving rubles that were worthless, and people were not working in the factories. They were mostly drunk in the factories, right? Yeah. So that whole system of socialism doesn't work. It doesn't work. So I think that while it's unfortunate, you need to stay this course, and I think it's going to continue to turn. And I think if you do the good job selling the Argentine story, and listen, no one doubts the upside. It's massive.
I want to go with the investment strategy that you wrote on your book. Let me first read this. I'm going to say it in Spanish. Si querés invertir de forma fácil y segura, te presento IEB+, la app de inversiones que estabas buscando. IEB+ es la única fintech bursátil que te permite operar desde tu celular tanto en el mercado nacional como internacional, todo sin comisiones. Empezá a hacer rendir tu dinero con el respaldo de Grupo IEB, uno de los bancos de inversión más grandes de la Argentina. Descarga IEB+ ahora. Jordan, let me ask you your investment strategy. Your portfolio is only with the S&P 500, right?
And Bitcoin.
And Bitcoin. You are a Bitcoin believer?
Yes.
Why?
Well, I used to hate Bitcoin many years back, and I was right and wrong. It was when it first went up to 18,000, I was like, this is such a joke. It's a scam. And back then, it kind of was being pumped up, and I said, it's going to go to zero. And very shortly after, it fell down to 2,000, right? And I was like, oh, I'm right. And then, oddly, it didn't keep going down. It started going back up, and it started to go back up to 10. That's when I sort of took a closer look, and a friend of mine really, said, please look at the actual math. Look at the actual underlying factors of it. And I had never done that before. I was just so against this idea because it was it just didn't make sense to me. And that was a mistake, by the way. I learned a lesson from that to not let my prejudices about these sort of things to stop me from actually looking at under the hood and really looking more closely, right? And then I started buying into Bitcoin, and I've been buying it ever since, and I've never sold any, and I continue to buy every day. And I think now, with at a certain, it's a classic case of the lie becoming the truth.
Yeah.
If enough people say it's true, then it becomes. And seriously, with a financial asset like this, it does, especially when the largest institutions in the world, like BlackRock, are behind it. I mean, what
Trump is also a Bitcoin believer.
Yeah,
Do you think he's going to put the Bitcoin on the economy, in the American economy?
I don't think it has
that.
I don't think it has a place in the economy per se. He could use it and buy it as a reserve asset.
You can pay taxes in Miami with Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, but that's not like, I don't think that really matters. Like, that's not really what makes Bitcoin's a store of value. Bitcoin has all the reasons to go up over the long term, okay, and very few to go down over the long term, okay. But I don't look at Bitcoin as a currency, so to speak, where like you're gonna go buy Bitcoin, then buy a pizza. The U.S. dollar works fine for that. Credit cards work okay. I just don't see that in the United States. Now, in countries that don't have a stable currency, yes, then it's very different. Okay, but again, I think stable coins are far better than Bitcoin for that. I look at Bitcoin as a store of value and a very good one. So I would think that it would make sense for the U.S. Treasury to take a position in Bitcoin.
Do you know Tim Draper?
Yeah.
Tim Draper used to say that, he's one of the most guy who owns a lot of Bitcoin.
He's been saying it's going to 80 million for like every year. It's going to a million. I know.
He used to say like that Bitcoin is just a little piece of internet. Why would you sell internet? Then he always goes with his.
Yeah, I respect Tim Draper, but I just think that the problem with Tim Draper is he's been these what I consider to be outlandishly bullish, price targets for it. And I was like, I don't know what Bitcoin's going, but I think it's going higher, a lot higher. I don't know when. So I think the person I'd look far more to for advice would be Michael Saylor. Mm-hmm. Him, I respect like enormously for his conviction, his vision, and by not making outlandish predictions. He just says, I don't care. I know it's going up over the long term, and the fundamentals are going to drive this thing, and the adoption's going to be there, and I could see this thing going to being a massive price, but I don't know when it's going to get there, and I don't care if it goes down. I'm just going to hope it goes down because I'm going to buy more.
Yep.
Like that to me is a much better way of looking at it. Although I don't not respect Tim Draper, I think he's made some really wild predictions that I thought were way. Let's say not that his prediction was wrong, but the timeline was wrong.
Many of the people who are watching, they are investing. Some of them they're investing not for the first time, but they are early investors, right? And I've heard you say that there's a difference between investing and speculating, and I think it would be great for them to hear your views on that. I mean, because
Sure.
you make a really clear difference between the both of them and
Sure.
what is best for the long term.
And I'm sure you could do a very good job of that as well, because as the Argentine Warren Buffett, he will tell you that he's not speculating, he's investing, he's doing value investing, and he's looking to find companies that are great companies, best in class, that for whatever reason are trading far below what they should based on value, right? And when he buys something, he's not looking to buy it for 6 months or 8 months or for a trade. He's just knowing that over time, the value will come through. If the market's undervalued, it's wrong right now, the market is not always right. In fact, the market's often wrong, right? And he's buying something, and he's buying because it's undervalued, right? Based on earnings, assets, cash flow, size of the industry, what's, its margins, right? And he goes and he finds something that clearly should be selling at a much higher price, and he buys it at the lower price. So it's almost, not assured, but let's just say when you buy that for the long term, that's a very smart way, I think, to invest. Speculating is like, trying to say the stock is at 18.12 right now, and I think that, tomorrow, based on earnings that have come out, it's going to be 19.3, and I'm going to buy some options or whatever I'm going to do and buy and sell and try to time the market. And frankly, unless you got some inside information on your side, or you got some super lightning fast, high-speed computers and your Goldman Sachs that's beating everybody else by 1/1,000,000th of a second, and you could turn that into a 1 penny profit 800,000 times a day, right? It's not going to go very well for you most of the time. Some people are really great traders and they make money on momentum trading and this and that, but The vast majority of people do very poorly like that. Very, very poorly. And, they might do really, really well for a time, and then they get wiped out or they have huge losses. And I think another problem with that is that, it's that type of short-term trading strategy, unless you are the most emotionally rock-solid person, you'll start to let your emotions get the best of you and start throwing good money after bad. When you're cold, making bad bets, you make outside bets. So there's an emotional component to trading that is just as important as having a sense of whether something's going up or down over the short term. And again, you go to these big institutional banks and they're short-term trading. They do great. But you can't play the game they're playing. They're, paying for order flow. They know where the market's going next, intraday. Like, they have a different game they're playing. They have massive capital bets. They're doing things at a different level. So it's like, if you want to try to trade short term, it's like against those guys, it's like you're bringing a knife to a gunfight, basically. The deck is so stacked against you that only the luckiest or most brilliant short-term traders can succeed. By doing what he does, you could take away their advantage because now you let time be your friend. You let time do the heavy lifting. In other words, anyone could learn to really analyze a company. All the information is out there right now. If you take the time to really learn that, okay, you can find really undervalued companies and hold them and do really well. That's one way. And that's a much safer, I think, and smarter way to invest. Or you could do what I do. I just buy the S&P 500 and I reinvest the dividends, okay? And I know that, on any given year I could make 30%. Maybe I'll lose some years too. On average, though, over any 10-year, 15-year period, I'm going to compound at 10.5% a year, reinvest my dividends, and that compounded growth over time is going to take even a small amount of money. I don't have a small amount of money there. It'll take a small amount of money and make it into a large amount of money, and take a large amount of money and make it into an extraordinarily large amount of money. Okay? That could take 25 to 30 years to do. But you know what? That's not a long time, because this is not money I plan on spending anyway. Let it work. People sometimes forget that. It takes compounding to really see it's like the later stage threshold of compounding. It all happens towards the end. It's like you take a penny and double it every day. In 30 days, you're worth like $6 million, right? But guess what? On day 25, you're only worth like $8,000. It all happens all the magic happens in the last like 6 days. The first, so like when you're compounding with the S&P, it doesn't seem like you're making that much progress, but then all of a sudden, like year 24, suddenly all that compounding starts to go wild.
What happens if a crash happened very close to my retirement date?
Meaning?
Like, I'm just about to retire, like, I don't know, 65, 70, and I've been doing that, and a market crash happened.
So when I say the way I invest, okay, is because I have a very, very high income and a very stable high income, okay? Every year, it doesn't matter what that number is, I make a tremendous amount of money, okay? So I don't have any bonds. No. Because I could lose all my money right now. I could zero out today, and I wouldn't have to change my lifestyle a bit. Doesn't matter how much I spend each month, I make a lot more every month. Okay, a lot more. Okay, and I have that spread over many different businesses. So even if a massive recession took, some of them are recession-proof, it wouldn't affect me. Okay, so I don't hedge myself with bonds. But if I was going to advise someone that was near retirement age, I would say, well, I love the S&P, but you want to have a certain portion of your portfolio in safer fixed income like bonds, in a great high yield bond fund. So even if the things crash, yeah, you'll lose, but it'll smooth out your returns. You make less on the upside, but you have a lot less exposure on the downside. And frankly, it's not that much lower. You get a lot more exposure. You get a lot more safety on the downside. Maybe you lose a point or two and a point and a half on the upside by having 30% of your portfolio, even 50% of your portfolio. As you get older, you want to have more fixed income to protect you and less equities. All right. But again, it depends on your risk tolerance. Like it also, I have a high risk tolerance. Like
we can do that.
I sleep fine at night with like all my money in the S&P. To me, that's the safest thing. To me, it's like I can't believe what a grown up I am. that I have all my money in the S&P, that I'm not wildly buying
And Bitcoin.
I'm not socking it all into NVIDIA. Like, in other words, and I believe in NVIDIA. I think NVIDIA is going so much higher, but like I resist the urge to play those games because I just know, I'm just doing that. I make enough of my personal life. I don't got to risk my investment stuff. So again, what you put into your portfolio depends on your age, your risk tolerance, and a bunch of, and your current income and so forth.
Me van a ayudar de traducción porque no quiero perder carisma en la pregunta. I'm
They're
sorry.
going to translate for him.
Primero, perdón porque voy a hablar en español.
Por favor.
Segundo, voy a ser muy respetuoso y le voy a dar la última palabra. Tercero, no me voy a perdonar si no hago esta pregunta. Muchas cosas ya explicó. Quiere decir,
He's very thankful for you to be here, and he's going to give you the last word. Okay.
prediqué toda la vida que lo que hizo el lobo de Wall Street está muy mal, afecta mucho a los mercados de capitales. Si le quiero enseñar algo a mis hijos es que el rumbo es completamente distinto, trabajo de otra cosa.
He always said that what Stratton Ogman did was very wrong by them, and he teach his children the opposite.
Right.
Muchas cosas ya explicó, pagó su culpa, así que está muy bien, pagó su culpa, entiendo eso. Pero quiero dejarle un mensaje a los chicos cuando tengan mi edad, a la próxima generación, y quiero un mensaje de eso, que está mal usar información privilegiada, está mal meterse con plata de terceros, está mal pisar la cabeza de otros para ganar dinero, que el dinero se hace trabajando, que el dinero se hace en buenas reglas y que es el camino del mercado de capitales, si no, no entendemos el concepto.
Inside information, and it's wrong to get rid of people in the middle of your career, and that transparency in the markets are very important to succeed.
Yeah.
Y quería un mensaje,
Would you give
entendiendo en muchas cosas que...
Would you give the audience a message about that?
Especially the young ones. I mean,
Sure.
what he's saying is that it would be important to have a message from you,
Yeah.
telling the young people who
Sure.
are watching us
Sure.
what is wrong about what happened.
Aprender del error.
And yes, and learning from the mistakes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, like, everything I just said was really about that. In other words, of like, an honest, correct, and logical way of going out and creating wealth versus trying to cut corners, deal with inside information. Or I think even more importantly for young people is getting caught up in wild speculation. The latest meme coin, the latest crypto or altcoin. This is all nonsense and noise, I believe. And I think you should avoid this stuff, okay? And I think there's no future in that. But again, I look at my life, all right? And I say, if I could go back, would I do things differently? Now, the answer is complicated. The answer is no, but yes. In other words, I can't look at life like that because you can't go back and redo life. But I will tell you the amount of pain and suffering those bad decisions caused me when I was younger, okay? If I could do it again, of course I would have never done that stuff, right? But I would have had all the fun in the world. Like the fun, that part was great. Like, listen, I abused myself with drugs and all stuff, but I was a kid and people make mistakes. But the stuff with the business where, with the stock manipulation, of course I wished I had never done that, right? But I think the most important thing when you look at my life is that to notice that, well, okay, and what did he do after? Did he keep doing that? Did he change his life? And when people see how I live my life today, they see a very different person that gives a very different type of advice. I believe that every young person should go out and seize life by the balls. Like, don't settle for mediocrity. Try to be great. Try to make a lot of money, right? Try to really, and if it's important to you. Some people it's not important to, but if it's important to you, then you should go for it. But, okay, look at my life as a cautionary tale. Do you really want to, I promise you this, that every person like me who makes mistakes, loses all their money, goes to jail, and gets smeared and vilified by the press, maybe there's like 3 of us that are living that have actually come back from that and succeeded even more. Everyone else never comes back. Millions of people that have made the mistakes I made did not come back from that. So I would not take those odds. Don't take the odds. I beat the odds through hard work, luck, okay? And I'll say it again, a lot of hard work, all right? And some luck as well. So I would not, like the path that I'm suggesting is don't try to be who I was and not worry about the consequences because you know you can come back from that. Chances are you won't. I'm the exception, and there's a few of us, but for every one of us that came back, there's 100,000 sorrowful people that never really recovered and got their lives back.
And not only going to jail, also about the health problems.
Everything.
I mean,
The whole
you could
thing.
lucky you didn't die, right?
The whole thing. Right?
It's true, yeah.
Right. The
When
whole
did
thing.
you realize that you fucked up? Or I mean, during the process, or one time, just
Oh, I knew.
single-
I knew.
You knew you were in fucking it up.
I knew that, that I made massive mistakes. But what happens is you're human beings have an incredible ability to rationalize and also compartmentalize, to put that you're on a path, you feel like you're on an island, you can't get off. And so you just keep this one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, and it just keeps getting worse and worse, right? So I knew, though, I wasn't blind to the fact that I was under investigation for 8 years. 8 years they were investigating me. So like it was like I didn't lose.
And you ended up being a friend of
I used to-
the agent.
He was at my house the other day. He was at my house last week.
to the FBI agent.
No, we did an
yeah.
interview together last week, 8 days ago, for German TV. He's a very good friend of mine. We're the nicest.
The guy who appears in the movie,
guy that
right?
appears
the guy, we was in my house last week. We did an interview together for German TV, and he was like saying the nicest things about me. The prosecutor who put me in jail is like a friend of mine. He's invited me down to speak. I give him clients from like my consultant. I became very friendly with all the people because I'd never been in trouble before that or after that.
Was
Right?
the scene on the boat?
That's not true.
That's not true?
That's not true. If I would have thrown lobsters, he would have probably shot
Did you
me.
do like?
Yeah, that we did. We did. Yeah, we used to do the fun coupons. Yeah, that was true. Yeah, that was true. But again, and I think it's a very important point. I'm glad that you mentioned this because and I think most kids get this because they see how my life is now, and I'm very careful when I speak about things that I speak about a very pure message about. It's about hard work, just elbow grease, right, and vision, knowing your why, and also like just. Again, it's about getting yourself to do the things that you know you have to do every day, even when you don't feel like doing them. It's very easy to get yourself to do things that you love, but a lot of success is going to require you to do things that you don't like doing, but they're important to your own growth, to running your business, to mastering skills, that you're going to have to just do the hard work. There's no shortcut for that. And I will tell you that if, let's say you're 21 or 15 or 30, guess what? 20 years from now, it's going to come whether you work or not. The future's coming whether you prepare for it or not. So, again, it happens fast. It happens really fast. So you got to make every single day count. You really, really do because, you don't want to – one thing I do not look back at my life with is regrets. I don't regret anything. I wish I would have done things, but I don't have regrets. I have remorse that I made mistakes, and I'm sorry for those mistakes. But living with regret, and especially, let's say you just lived your life with mediocrity, and you didn't really go for it and do the things that you wanted to do, and you burned like a 10-watt light bulb, so to speak, right? Versus burning bright and living life to its fullest. To me, that's not living. To burn like that 10-watt bulb. I think, and I also think, as a person that believes in God, I think God wants us to be rich. God wants people to succeed and to have great lives. God doesn't want you to struggle. If you believe in God, and even if it's just nature you believe in, I don't think nature believes in abundance as well. And there's an old. I'll tell you it's a little parable here, but the worst thing when you're on an airplane and you're about to take off is when they have that message. They say, okay, now if for some reason the oxygen masks fall down, right? You're like, oh shit, I'm fucking down, I'm dead, right? They say, but whatever you do, you take the mask, put your own mask on first, even before you put your child's mask on. They make that a point. Before you put your child's mask on, put your mask on first. Why? Because without oxygen, you can't help anybody. So secure your own mass so you can read, then you help your child, then you save both of you, right? Well, money is like oxygen. You know, if you yourself are in poverty or broke, you can't help anybody. So the idea, that's why I believe God wants people to be have abundance and be wealthy and have great, because, you know, the idea is to make money and spread it around. Be generous, give to the causes you believe in, help your community. And I think people in Argentina, if there's one message I can give is that, you know, you got to stop thinking about plans. It doesn't work. It doesn't. Yes, some people need them. And we have it in the United States too. This plan, there has to be a social safety net. There does. So I'm not saying that no social safety net. That is important. But it should be the exception to the rule, not a way of life, because a country can't run if 50% of the people are not really working and producing. It's hard to run the country that way. So there needs to be a change in mindset to people. That's the social safety net must be there, but it's got to be the exception to the rule.
Do you feel poor today in compared with with the wealth you used to have?
No, I feel richer today than I've ever felt in my life.
There is a famous saying from Gordon Gekko that says, greed is good. Greed captures the evolutionary spirit of mankind, which I think is what Jordan means.
Well, no, it's not greed so much, but ambition. Ambition. Greed's tricky because greed can make you do things that you wouldn't want to do. So I would say that it was a great speech, but I would take greed and put the word ambition in. Yeah. Ambition's really what it's about. And I don't think that everyone needs to be rich. Many people don't. My parents couldn't have cared less about being rich. So I'm not saying you have to just get rich.
What is getting rich? What is rich? What's
rich
the
definition? Rich is
how much money would you think someone is rich?
Whatever makes them feel rich. It's a completely personal thing. In other words, you know, Mother Teresa didn't have a dollar in her pocket, and she was the richest woman in the world. Because she didn't judge her wealth based on how many dollars she had. It was based on how do you define being rich? What makes you feel good? If you wake up every day feeling happy and great and you're living the life that you want, you're richer than anybody. You're richer than someone. I know some miserable people that are worth billions of dollars.
Or they are in their own plane and they're watching the plane next to them, right? I mean,
yeah, or they're just on their own plane, like feeling like shit.
Yeah.
Miserable, isolated, alone. Not because they're rich or poor. That's just because the money is, listen, a lack of money creates problems, okay, for most people. So it's very nice to have money.
Countries like ours.
Money solves problems, okay? But when I see people should go, you know, I'm saying the whole country needs to become obsessed with money, but just like, I just think that people feel better about themselves when they get paid for the work they do. When you give someone a handout, it doesn't feel good to them. And they almost become, it's like an addiction to a drug. They become addicted to the handout. And it's almost like it's not fair to them. They're capable of more. And this idea of just like everyone trying just, when I say produce, to give to the economy, that's going to create more success, more jobs. And I really think that the one thing the U.S. has going for it is this entrepreneurial spirit. All these small businesses, because these small businesses collectively create so much new jobs every single year. That's really where the growth, that's what the U.S. does so well. And I really believe if Argentina could take a little bit of that, just a little bit of that, and get this idea of like, and it's not to everyone, but it's for a lot of people.
You know, the debate right now in Argentina is the difference between the market rally and the economy that is still struggling. So that's the debate right now. So
markets, listen, number one, first thing is that markets are leading indicators. Okay? So markets are ahead of the economy. So the market does not reflect what the economy is doing right now. It reflects where investors think the economy is going. Mm-hmm. So it should be bullish for the economy. If the economy is doing poor and the market's doing well, that means that people think the economy will improve. It's a leading indicator. Okay? So that's probably good news for the economy. Okay? Now, also there could be other technical factors involved, like there's not that many liquid stocks for people to buy. Okay, so maybe there's more money right now chasing not that many shares, which is causing it to be somewhat of a bubble, is possible as well. But I think what you also probably have is probably some foreign capital, I'm guessing, coming into the stock market, I would guess, at least some, because people are looking, they're playing the Malay bet. It's a Malay bet, right?
Yeah.
That he's going to make good. The bond market rallied tremendously. That's when he told me to buy bonds. I should have fucking done it.
There's lots of Argentinian capital coming back.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's a lot of wealthy people in Argentina.
Exactly,
I always
but
say, wow, there's poverty.
exactly.
I look at the restaurants, they're all full. The Argentinians
Doesn't make sense, right?
The Argentines are fun. It's a funny thing. Like they just make it work somehow. I don't understand how they do it. Like my wife first explained to me, she's like, there's the black rate, there's the white rate, there's the blue rate, there's the rate for oil, there's the rate for export. There's like 20 different rates of currency. I'm like, how does someone do this? She's like, well, you make it work. And, and like my brother-in-law's got a business. He's got metals. He's like,
It's very hard to be an entrepreneur here in Argentina.
Well, you got to be really sharp. You got to be really sharp. But I think that with inflation coming down to reasonable levels, right? It makes it possible. It changes the game enough. It's starting to make the playing field at least possible. Now, another thing that you guys really need to have here, which has to happen at some point, is you need to have a functioning credit system, okay? You don't have mortgages here. That's insane. In the United States, my wife, I keep bringing her because it's so many funny stories, because she didn't understand. Like, she's like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy a new car. She says, what car? Oh, I'm buying an Aston Martin. She says, how much? It's like, oh, it's like $300,000. She's like, oh, okay, whatever. And we go to the dealership, and I'm like, all right, I want the car. I'm like, great. I signed the paper. And the guy's, all right, thanks, great. I said, I'm going to wire you $5,000. Great, yeah, great. She's like, what do you mean? You gave the guy $5,000? I'm like, well, I leased it. She's like, what do you mean you leased it? I'm like, I could have bought it for $5,000. It's the bank. I just paid the bank. She's like, what? She goes, I paid the bank. It's like I got a loan. I got like 5% interest rate. She goes, in Argentina, people buy their houses and rent their TVs.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite. Like
The haircut.
It's
You pay haircut with a credit card.
Right. But you like have to buy a house for cash,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We go in the United States, you buy a $10 million house for $2 million or $3 million, and the rest is borrowed. Why? Because inflation is low enough that they can lend you money you can't do that when inflation's 30% because the interest would just it would be.
there's there's no interest rate. There's no price for money if inflation is so high, right?
Yeah, that's right. So that you can't. So this is why it's so important for inflation to come down. Because you get inflation to like 8%, 10%, you can suddenly have an actual system where people could start buying homes, okay? And then of course what will happen is home prices will rise, okay, tremendously. And wealth will be created, and that will bring more money to the economy. And so it starts, like having a credit system where people can get loans and things like that. Oh my God, what that would do for Argentina. So again, this is why there's short-term pain right here. You have to bring down inflation for any of this to happen.
Mm-hmm. One last question, Tucho or Alejo?
Only-
I have one last, but
Only coming back to the message. So I have some quotes in my cell phone that I read from time to time, and there's one that says, "Nobody's coming to save you," and it comes back to the working hard, right? I mean, nobody is coming to save you in a good way. I mean, not in a way that I should be like afraid. In the way that you should be responsible for your whole life. Of course, if people need and if people fall out of the system, of course you need to help them. But an economy cannot live on that.
No.
And I'm really happy that you gave that message on hard work, because I mean, in the end, if we are all responsible for our own life, right, and we try to do our best, and then if we do have money, then we can give it back, and then you can help the people who are out of the system. So that phrase, "Nobody's coming to help you," it's always something that has kept me going and pushing.
Yeah. I agree, and I think that It happens, it's socialism. That's what it is. It's not just Argentina. Any place where they use this experiment, it sounds really good on paper. It doesn't work. It just does not work. So you can't go back to Peronism. You can't. It doesn't work. It's impossible. It's never worked anywhere. It's destroyed Venezuela was one of the richest countries in the world. They have countless reserves of more oil than anyone in the world, pretty much, right? Mm-hmm. they can't get a gallon of gas there. There's no gas in the country. Like everyone's broke, completely decimated. Socialism has decimated the country. I said it before. You look at North Korea, South Korea. Same people, same intelligence level, same. Look, you split the countries in two. Let's do an A/B test. One's going to be communism, socialism. One's going to be capitalism. Whoa. Samsung, LG. Yeah, guess what they can make? Nuclear bombs. Okay, that's about it. And everyone starves and goes. It's ridiculous, you know? So I think Argentina needs to, the Argentines that are on that side of this whole Peronism thing, they need to take a very close look at it and just get honest with themselves. You know, that if you care about your children and your grandchildren and the future of this country, then you need to push that aside. It's not going to work. Even if it's going to be tougher for you, you're gonna do your children and your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren a tremendous service by getting back to a capitalist economy with a social safety net, as it should have. But that's got to be the exception to the rule, not half the population.
Sucho?
Oh, thank you.
Fer, Tension?
Nothing else.
Well, to the end, I want to first of all, thank you very much.
Yeah, you going to hand me a pen or something?
I have a pen right here. I have a pen. I'm not going to go with the easy question, all right? I'm not going to go sell me this pen question because that's so easy. But you say you are one of the best salesmen in the world, right?
I don't know.
I've heard you saying that. Okay. So I want you to sell me this pen, but this is not just an easy pen. Just let's pretend this pen is Argentina. So please, would you sell me this pen called Argentina?
Oh, the pen's Argentina?
Yeah.
So this pen represents Argentina.
All of us.
Well, the question is, who am I selling it to?
To the
Who am I
world.
selling Argentina
to the whole world. You are Milei right now.
I'm Malay, okay?
Yeah.
Well, what I would basically, let me tell you the first thing I would do, okay? And you might not love this answer, okay? But I would never, ever try to just sell someone Argentina the way you asked. Why? Because I would do about 1 day of research first, okay? And I would clarify my thoughts. And I would get every fact and I would get every statistic. I would come up with such a compelling upside picture. I would never wing it. In other words, I would study, I would come up, one of the things I do really well is I'm able to come up with like sort of this a script, so to speak, but an airtight case for something. And I look at all the information, all of that, and I figure out a way to present that information in an incredibly compelling way, without lying, without exaggerating, but the most compelling upside picture. I would do that. I would spend a lot of time, at least probably half a day doing that. I would then also spend time on the downside. And I would look at all the possible things that people are thinking why they wouldn't want to invest, their fears. And I would then come up with mitigation strategies and have that whole thing worked out, right? And then I would act, once I had that done, those things done, then I would go out and sell you Argentina. Until then, it's ridiculous. I'd be making shit up. I don't know the statistics. I don't know the best case right now. But what I would do, and that's called strategic preparation. And I did this once where I was tested by psychologists that were they were trying to understand how the straight line works. Long story, but when they asked me to, we did these, what they're called critical incident scenarios. They said, sell this person like he's a CEO of a milk company and sell him on him coming to your investment bank to use you for all their financial reasons, right? And they had all these cameras around with tape, and basically they wanted me to do a mock sale, right? And they had this guy was an actor, right? And they gave me a portfolio and said, here's the story, here's the milk company, here's the story. Mm-hmm. And it was like yay thick. They said, we'll give you 15 minutes, right? So I said, okay, and I started looking through this thing, and I'm, writing some stuff down. They come back 15 minutes later, say, you ready? I'm like, I just need more time. Is it okay? Yeah, take as much time as you want. So I kept going, the 30 minutes, right? They came back, are you ready? I'm like, just a little more time, right? And did it again, another 30 minutes, finally an hour. I said, 5 more minutes, all right? About an hour and a half passes. I'm like, all right, I'm ready, okay? Lights on, camera rolling. The guy comes in. He's an actor, and we get into this whole conversation. I'm trying to convince him to use my firm, and I'm killing it. Like, I know I sound really good because I have my whole path figured out, and it's also financial services, which is something I know very well. right? And I'm just totally, and all this is on, it's online. It's on
online.
It's on
Is it?
YouTube.
YouTube?
Oh. It's on YouTube, yeah.
All right.
It's on YouTube right now. This is the real sale. And I'm going and I give this guy this great language pattern and close, and he's like, no, you won't do it. And then I loop back around, I try again, he won't do it. And then I use my best one of all. And the third time, the guy's like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And he agrees. And everybody, there was like 5 psychologists, they all start laughing. Oh my God, I can't believe it. They were like carrying on, all right? And then they cut the camera. I'm like, what's so funny? They're like, we told him that under no circumstances could he say yes.
And he did.
And you still closed him. Okay? That's part of the story. So I was like, oh, wow, okay, well, I know I'm really good. Like, but here's the stranger part. We've done this with 50 other salespeople, right? No one closed them. And no one spent more than 5 minutes reviewing the material. No one bothered to sit there and actually write out their thoughts and make the case. They looked at, okay, great, bring the guy in.
Again, the hard work.
Well, just that I know there's work to be done before you. I can't just sell you Argentina. I have to know before I would do it. I could do it and make shit up. Okay, but it's ridiculous. I'm going to go out there and make this incredible airtight case. I'm going to go mineral deposits. I'm going to go economic, the soybeans, all the crops, all this shit. You can imagine the shit I cut. If I did research, I would come up with the most powerful case for Argentina. And then I'd also come up with I'd also come up with all the downside, and I'd call some friends and people. I'd brainstorm. What are the great mitigation strategies? What can we say? What can we do? And I'd come up with this incredible upside downside thing, right? And so forth. And I would know every objection. I would already imagine everything they could ask. I have all those questions already answered logically in my mind. And then I could sit down and just literally blow anyone away. I wouldn't leave it up to chance. That's how I would do it.
I'm really looking forward for that. When you have it, just send it to Fred, and he's going to send
in any
it back
case,
to me.
In any case, I don't think Franklin Templeton is gonna buy bonds again.
No, you know how much money Templeton lose money with Argentina?
How much did they lose?
I don't know. Tons
It
of
was
billions.
massive, and really they ruined one fund that they have, a very famous one of the most
Can I
famous
tell you something,
fixed
guys?
income funds in the world.
Wall Street.
You hate Goldman Sachs,
Wall
right?
Street has no. I don't hate Goldman Sachs at all. No, I have a lot of friends that work there.
You do, yeah.
No, I just I make fun of them because it's hysterical. I mean, they're amazing at what they do, and like it's like how they get away with this shit. I don't know, but good for them, right? I mean, that's what they do. But the point is what was I saying?
Franklin Templeton.
Yeah. Oh, Wall Street has the shortest memory in the world.
Yeah.
No matter what, you can burn them, destroy them. You know what? If they think they can make a buck in Argentina, I don't care how much Franklin Templeton. No one cares. The second they think they can make money for the next 5 to 10 years and get their bonuses, okay, they'll put as much money as they can into Argentina. Nobody cares what you did in the past.
You said there is two Wall Street, the dark Wall Street, the dark side of Wall Street and the other side.
Well, that's not
You
even the
used to
dark
be in-
side. That's just the pragmatic side of Wall Street. I mean, that's like, Wall Street is short-term thinkers, right? But the point is that like they have no problem investing in countries that blow up. Okay, they just want to make money. Like, right? They're like this guy Adam. What was the guy from WeWork? How much money did he lose people? Right? And then the hedge funds, VCs gave another $70 million. Try again. Now he's giving that money back. The point is that they think they can make money with you. They'll invest. So you convince them that Argentina is a good bet now. They don't care what about the past because you didn't default because you wanted to. You defaulted because you had terrible economic policies and a government that drove this country into the ground. Well, that's in the past. Now Malay's the new sheriff in town, and you have to convince them that never going to be like that again. And they love to drink the Kool-Aid, Wall Street. They love to do that.
Well, Jordan, it was incredible having you here. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
We really enjoyed. So thank you for again. I'm grateful.
My pleasure.
Not only me, but the whole Neura team. And well, thank you, Jordan. It was here with us tonight, Mr. Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street. Thank you.
Thanks. My pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Bueno, listo. Nos vemos la próxima. Chao.